My boyfriend was on the bed, vigorously playing a game of poker with my best friend. I hid under the bed, secretly recording everything. Suddenly, my best friend's moans turned into screams, the bed began to shake violently, and blood flowed to the floor like a waterfall. Then, my best friend's bloody head rolled down, her wide eyes staring directly at me. 1. I was instantly terrified. What's going on? My boyfriend actually killed someone. I came here today to catch them in the act, but unexpectedly stumbled upon a murder scene. On the bed, my boyfriend, Sean, was chuckling sinisterly, the sound of the knife plunging into flesh still clear. I forcefully covered my mouth, forcing myself not to make a sound, tears streaming down my face. Why did he kill her? A few minutes later, Sean's movements ceased, as if he was tired of stabbing. He lay on the blood-soaked bed and lit a cigarette. Just then, my phone's WeChat notification tone suddenly sounded. My heart skipped a beat, and I frantically muted the phone. But he seemed to have heard the vibration. He said with a questioning tone. I felt the bed move. He seemed to be lifting the covers, searching for the source of the sound. I almost cried out, fumbling to silence my phone. The second I pressed the mute button, Sean called me. Dong, dong. The empty ringing tone lasted about a minute. Seeing that I didn't answer, he hung up and sent me a WeChat voice message. Honey, are you asleep? I'm working late tonight and won't be home. After he said that, I saw his feet slip into slippers and step onto the floor. The floor was covered in my best friend, Lily's blood. Sean walked across it, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. He seemed to be searching for something in the room. Suddenly, he coughed violently twice. I jumped in fright, forgetting to breathe in my tension. Lily's bloody head was right in front of me, staring at me, her severed neck still spurting blood, her face full of shock and horror. Sean walked around naked, seemingly not finding anything. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a cleaver, and walked back to the bed. His big feet were right in front of my eyes, and then he began to dismember the body, hacking with each strike as if he were chopping vegetables. Inadvertently, he kicked Lily's head. The bloody head rolled under the bed, almost touching my face. I tightly covered my mouth, trembling all over. The overwhelming stench of blood made me want to vomit. But I don't know where I got the courage, and reached out to push her head away. Just as Sean was stepping forward, he kicked Lily's head away like a soccer ball. Sean paused, stopping his movements. The cleaver in his hand was still dripping with blood. I prayed silently in my heart. Don't look under the bed, don't look under the bed. Sean paused for a few seconds and walked forward to pick up the head. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed he hadn't discovered me yet. My brain was racing, thinking about how to escape. My best friend's apartment was on the 10th floor. Jumping out the window was definitely out of the question. It seemed I could only escape after Sean finished dealing with the body and left. But could I hold on until then? Blood continued to spread under the bed. I wiggled my body further in, trying to avoid the blood that was about to flow into my mouth. Sean hacked at the body by the bed for a while. Suddenly, Lily's hand fell to the ground. My heart almost stopped. If he just looked down to pick it up, he would definitely see me. Sean paused for a moment and slowly bent down to pick up the hand. I closed my eyes in fear, covering my mouth to stop myself from screaming, praying to heaven for something to happen. The next second, there was a sudden knock on the door. 2. Sean's movements froze instantly. He remained bent over, motionless for a long time. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking sounded again, and a loud voice called out from outside the door. I'm home. Open up. I knew that voice. It was Lily's boyfriend, Cody. Sean hesitated for a moment, coughed twice, and straightened up, moving his feet towards the door. He put on clean clothes, hid the knife behind his back, and stopped at the door. My heart was in a knot. If Cody came in and fought with Sean, maybe I could use the chaos to escape. Thinking this, I moved my body towards the edge of the bed again, ready to run at any moment. Sean hesitated for a while and opened the door. Still not done after all this time? Cody said with a slight anger. My heart sank. Cody actually knew about their affair. From the looks of it, the two had already discussed it. Sean smoked a cigarette without saying a word. Then Cody saw the blood on Sean's body and the nauseating smell of blood in the air. His face paled. What did you do? Sean gave a sinister smile. Isn't it obvious? You killed her? Cody was dumbfounded. He stepped forward and grabbed Sean's collar. Didn't you say you were just playing around? Why did you kill her? I thought you didn't care whether she lived or died. Sean was calm, as if killing someone was a commonplace event for him. Cody collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Sean's eyes were cold, but his lips curved into a smile. Help me dispose of her body. If the police find out, you won't be able to escape the blame either. Cody got angry and shouted loudly. Bullshit. You killed her. I don't know anything. Don't drag me down with you. Sean suddenly attacked, grabbed his collar, and put the knife to his neck. Then let me put it another way. You help me dispose of her, or I'll kill you right now. Cody was finally afraid. His lips trembled, and he was too scared to speak, only nodding vigorously. Sean released his grip, moved his head slightly, signaling him to start. Cody walked tremulously to the bed. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still vomited when he saw the gruesome state of Lily's body. Useless. Sean looked at him coldly, picked up 2 large legs, and turned to enter the kitchen. I shrank under the bed, watching Cody chop up the body while vomiting. Suddenly, Lily's severed limb fell to the ground again. Cody bent down, and suddenly paused. He saw me hiding under the bed. My eyes trembled, and I raised a finger to my lips, making a shushing gesture. Cody subconsciously glanced toward the kitchen, remaining silent. His lips moved slightly, and I made out what he said. Run, call the police. I shuddered and nodded emphatically. Sean was still forcefully chopping the meat in the kitchen, completely unaware of what was happening on my side. I slowly crawled out from under the bed, walking barefoot across the blood-soaked floor. Moving slowly toward the door. The door was only a few dozen steps from the bed, but to me, it felt like a journey of hundreds of thousands of miles. As I walked, I kept an eye on the kitchen, fearing that Sean would suddenly turn around and discover me. Perhaps because Sean was making so much noise chopping meat, coupled with Cody deliberately creating noise, I successfully escaped through the door. In the hallway, a gust of cold wind blew, making me shiver. It was then that I realized my clothes were soaked with sweat, practically dripping. I wanted to run, but my legs gave way, and I fell to the ground. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I felt like the doorknob behind me moved slightly. A strong desire to survive spurred me into action, and I scrambled up the stairs, tumbling and crawling. Lily and I lived in the same building. She was on the 10th floor, and I was on the 18th. When I bought the apartment, Lily advised me not to buy on the 18th floor, saying it was unlucky. But I'm not superstitious, and the 18th floor was also very cheap, so I bought it anyway. I ran all the way from the 11th floor to the 18th floor. When I reached my front door, I frantically opened the smart lock and rushed inside, finally feeling a bit safer. I slapped myself hard, trying to confirm that everything I had just seen wasn't a nightmare. In my memory, Sean was a mild-mannered man, a standard honest person who would rather take a loss himself than let others suffer. I found it hard to reconcile him with a perverted murderer. And from his behavior, it was likely not the first person he had killed. 3. A few days ago, I had noticed something was off about him. I found a pink hair on his clothes. It was a rare color, and Lily had coincidentally recently dyed her hair that color. At first, I couldn't believe it. Sean loved me very much. The few times I had seen him angry were all for my sake. Although Lily was promiscuous and had a bad character, Sean, with his taciturn nature, wasn't her type either. I really didn't want to believe that the two of them would get together. But soon, reality hit me hard. While Sean was sleeping, I secretly checked his phone. At first, I didn't find anything wrong, but soon I discovered that he had a second space on his phone. In that space, there were not only pornographic apps and images, but also a dedicated account to contact Lily. The images were extremely disturbing and graphic, showing girls being violently abused and covered in scars. There were even some dismembered limbs and bodies split in half. Those girls all had blonde hair. I also had blonde hair. I didn't expect that the seemingly gentle Sean had such disgusting fetishes. In addition, there were chat logs with Lily. Honey, come to my place tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you. Don't worry, I can definitely give you an experience that Chad can't. Attached below was a nude photo. Sean replied with a characteristic emoji. I was furious, tears streaming down my face. I really didn't expect my best friend to seduce my boyfriend. So today, I had intentionally left work early and hid under the bed to catch the two of them in the act. But I didn't expect Sean to directly kill Lily. Why did he kill Lily? Lily's boyfriend clearly knew about their relationship, so why didn't he stop it? My brain was a mess, and I helplessly tore at my hair. After a brief moment of distraction, I suddenly realized that the most urgent thing was to call the police, otherwise Cody would also be in danger. I tremblingly picked up my phone. The phone case was already stained with blood. Hello? What's the matter? Are you reporting a crime? The call connected, and a gentle female voice came from the other end. I was overjoyed and about to speak. Almost at the same time, the sound of the smart lock opening came from the door. Ding, fingerprint verification successful, unlocked. I froze instantly, my face filled with horror. Hello? Are you there? I hung up the phone immediately. Sean had already walked up to me. Honey, not asleep yet? Who were you calling just now? And nothing. My face was pale, and I was trembling all over. He had already changed into clean clothes and still had that refined face, looking at me gently. He was completely different from the Sean at the murder scene. "Honey, why do you have blood on you?" That's when he noticed the blood on my clothes and was slightly surprised. I bit my teeth hard, not allowing myself to cry out. I accidentally fell off my bike. He stared at me with a complex expression. "So you were the one who ran away just now." I was struck by lightning, and my body softened, almost collapsing to the ground. Sean stepped forward and supported me. "Sorry, honey, I scared you." His face was slightly red, and he even showed a childlike expression of guilt. "Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you." I forcefully broke free from him and took a few steps back. Why did you kill her?" He looked at me calmly. "Honey, she's your best friend, and she took the initiative to seduce me. Doesn't she deserve to die?" I was stunned. "Just because of that? You killed her?" He nodded and tried to put his arm around my shoulder again, but I dodged him again, so he gave up. "She's your best friend, but she hurt you so much. I can't stand that. She had to die." I stared at him. This face was so familiar, yet so unfamiliar. His reasons were so absurd and laughable. "Hypocrite, then why did you still sleep with her?" He didn't speak, just lowered his head. "I'm sorry, honey, but you have to believe me, I really did it for your own good." I suddenly thought of something, staring at him with wide eyes. "Where's Cody?" "Dead." "No, I have to call the police." I was horrified and picked up my phone to call the police, but Sean snatched it away, a hint of ferocity flashing in his eyes. I trembled all over, taking 2 steps back, fearing that he would go berserk and kill me too. Fortunately, that fierce look was only fleeting. He put his hands on my shoulders, looking at me with sincere eyes. "Honey, just pretend you didn't see anything today. I'll take care of everything. Can we still live together like we used to?" I trembled slightly and nodded. No matter what, I had to pretend to be compliant to have any hope of escaping. Seeing that I had forgiven him, Sean seemed very happy. He coughed twice, hugged me tightly, and then took out a necklace from his pocket and put it around my neck. "Honey, tomorrow is our wedding anniversary. This is my gift to you. I was originally going to give it to you tomorrow." He smiled at me. I looked down, stroking the necklace, trembling slightly. "Honey, I won't let anyone who wants to hurt you go." I didn't speak, but instead glanced at the kettle to the side. He released me, his face full of tenderness. "Look at you, covered in the blood of beasts. Go wash up." I hummed softly and, taking him by surprise, grabbed the kettle from the table and smashed it on his head. He grunted and stumbled back, blood immediately flowing from his head. His eyes were full of surprise. Without looking back, I opened the door and ran. Sean sighed and wiped the blood from his head. Why won't you listen?" "For." After escaping through the door, I knew that I wouldn't be able to run far before Sean caught me. At that point, I would really be in mortal danger. I ran to the 17th floor and knocked on the door of apartment 1703. 1703 was inhabited by a university professor named Professor Cheen. I didn't know his first name and always called him Professor Cheen. This person had only recently moved in. He was in his 30s, with a gentle and refined demeanor. I had a good impression of him. Professor Cheen, are you home? Sean wants to kill me." I hammered on the door and shouted loudly in terror. I heard footsteps coming from the stairwell. I knew Sean was catching up. The person inside the apartment didn't respond, and I started to cry softly in fear. "Honey, come home with me. This is your last chance." Sean's gloomy face emerged from the darkness, like a demon crawling out of hell, approaching me step by step. Just when I was about to despair, the door opened. A pair of hands pulled me into the apartment and slammed the door shut. The feeling of relief after escaping death made me feel breathless. A pair of hands wrapped around my shoulders. Under Professor Cheen's comforting words, I slowly calmed down. As if I had found a support, I hugged him tightly and wailed loudly. Professor Cheen's body stiffened noticeably. I could feel his breathing quickening. After hesitating for a moment, he hugged me back. After crying for about 5 minutes, I gradually calmed down and released him, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Professor Cheen, Professor Cheen adjusted his glasses, interrupting my apology. When he saw the blood on my clothes, he was visibly stunned, but he quickly returned to normal. "Miss Chen, what's wrong? Did you have a fight with Sean?" My face was full of fear, and I shook my head. "Sean is a murderer. He killed my best friend and her boyfriend. I suspect he wants to kill me now." Professor Cheen listened in stunned silence, pondering for a moment. "Are you kidding me?" "I'm not kidding, really, I saw it with my own eyes." I anxiously fumbled in my pockets, wanting to call the police, only to realize that my phone was still in Sean's hands. "Professor Cheen, call the police quickly. If he gets in here, it's all over." Professor Cheen nodded, stood up, and dialed 110, telling the police about the current situation. After hanging up, he leaned against the table, staring at me with a strange expression. Just as I was about to say something, there was a violent knocking on the door. "Honey, stop fooling around. Come home with me." Sean's voice came from outside the door. "Sean, I've already called the police. Go turn yourself in." I replied tremblingly. Sean was silent for a moment, then pounded on the door. Accompanied by the sound of fading footsteps, he seemed to have left. I breathed a sigh of relief, almost collapsing on the sofa. Professor Chin was still staring at me. That look was very strange, full of suspicion and doubt. "Chen-mo, calm down. What exactly is going on?" I told Professor Chin everything that had happened today in detail. His expression was uncertain, gradually becoming serious. "Chen-mo, do you know about the West District pervert?" I paused, my expression changed slightly, and I slowly nodded. The West District pervert is a serial rapist and murderer who has brutally raped and murdered 5 women in the past 6 years. This person has extremely strong counter-reconnaissance awareness. I was fortunate enough to participate in the special group that investigated him. I know a lot of inside information. After saying that, he lowered his head. Without exception, the girls targeted by the West District pervert all have blonde hair. This killer seems to have a special preference for blonde girls. And you also happen to be blonde, plus the photos you found on Sean's phone. A strange light flashed in Professor Chin's eyes. I'm sure that Sean is the West District pervert who committed the serial rape and murder case. I was stunned, unable to believe it for a moment. I had been married to Sean for 4 years. For these 4 years, he had been very good to me, never once losing his temper with me. Could it be that I had always been his captive prey? No wonder he was so skilled when he killed Lily. I sat on the ground, painfully tearing at my hair. If I hadn't discovered it today, I would have suffered the same fate as those girls after a while. Professor Chin sighed and patted me on the shoulder. "Don't be afraid, you're still safe for now. I've already called the police, and they'll be here soon." I stared at him blankly and nodded. Professor Chin boiled a pot of water and made me a cup of tea. The tea was particularly fragrant, with a refreshing aroma. This also gave my fearful and anxious heart some relief. "Professor Chin, thank you." I looked at him and smiled gently. He seemed a little shy, coughed softly, and his cheeks turned a little red. "It's okay, I can't just stand by and watch someone die, can I?" After drinking a cup of tea, I looked at the time. It had been almost an hour since I called the police. Why hadn't they arrived yet? Professor Chin saw my confusion and comforted me. "Don't worry, the police should be here soon." He stood up and smiled slightly. "You must be exhausted after all this. Get some sleep." I hesitated, but at this point I was indeed mentally exhausted, so I agreed. He walked to the closet to get me a blanket. It was strange, even though he lived alone, he had a pink blanket. The feeling of exhaustion washed over me. I yawned, my eyelids starting to droop. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. I was startled and looked around. It turned out that Professor Chin had accidentally knocked over a box while getting the blanket. I walked over, wanting to help him pick it up. "No, I'll do it myself." Professor Chin's voice rose 2 octaves. He bent down, trying to stop me. But I had already opened the box. My eyes widened instantly. 5. The box contained dozens of photos. Dozens of photos of abused girls. The top one was of a girl. She was naked, spread out in a large X shape, with syringes stuck all over her body. Her death was extremely tragic. I felt all the blood in my body freeze in an instant. Professor Chin leaned on his arm, looking at me with interest, his eyes revealing a sneer. "Oops, you found out after all. You're the West District pervert?" I asked, my voice trembling. He squatted down, slowly approaching me, stroking my hair, taking a deep breath. "What beautiful blonde hair. I moved here for you. Chen-mo, you have no idea how much I love you." I wanted to stand up, but found my limbs weak and powerless. I collapsed to the ground with a thud. "Your tea. Chen-mo, you're beautiful, but too stupid. You didn't suspect me even though the police didn't come for an hour?" He shook the phone in his hand triumphantly. "I didn't call the police at all. These past few days, I've been thinking about how to get my hands on you. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to my door." He licked his lips, already turning into a beast. My consciousness gradually blurred, and everything went black. I fainted on the spot. When I woke up again, I was only wearing underwear, tied to the bed, my mouth gagged. Professor Chin was shirtless. Various torture instruments were laid out on the bedside table. TSK, which one shall we play with first today?" Tears streamed from my eyes, and my throat emitted whimpering sounds. He picked up a syringe and waved it in front of me. It contained a viscous, disgusting liquid. I paused, and a monstrous hatred ignited in my eyes. "I remember 2 years ago, I killed a girl who looked a lot like you too." Professor Chin had a sickly smile on his face, the cold, huge needle pressed against my face. "When I first saw you, I was dazed for a moment. I even thought a vengeful ghost had come to claim my life. TSK, perfect. I didn't have enough fun last time. She died after I only inserted a dozen needles. Today, you have to hold on for a while. I was powerless to struggle, my eyes full of despair. I never expected to escape the wolf's den only to enter the tiger's mouth. Today, I was destined to die here. The huge needle pierced my skin, and the intense pain made me swell instantly. But I didn't struggle, just glared hatefully at the mad Professor Chin. It hurt so much, it really hurt so much. Was she in this much pain back then? No, she must have been in even more pain than this. I couldn't control my tears, and they soaked the sheets. Just as he was about to take the next step, the door opened. Cold air instantly rushed into the room, and I shivered. A man's shadow appeared behind Professor Chin. Professor Chin turned his head subconsciously. The sharp tip of a knife was inserted directly into his eye socket. Ah! Professor Chin let out a heart-wrenching scream, covering his injured eye and rolling on the ground. Sean looked at him coldly, his eyes full of murderous intent. You dare touch my wife? Another knife, and Professor Chin's other eye was gouged out alive. He curled up in pain, unable to even scream. A light flashed in my eyes, and I struggled as much as I could. Sean looked at the bumps on my arm from the injections, tears welling up in his eyes, his face full of heartache. I'm sorry, honey, I'm late. He untied my ropes and hugged me tightly. I hugged him back, crying heart-wrenchingly. Honey, I said, I will make those who have hurt you pay the price. He held my shoulders, looking at me gently. You sleep for a while. Now, it's time for him to pay the price. His cold lips touched my forehead. Before losing consciousness again, I saw him holding a knife, walking step by step towards Professor Chin. 6. That's what happened last night. In the interrogation room, I was wearing a blanket, speaking to the two police officers who were questioning me. After listening to my words, the old policeman, about 50 years old with a stern face, glared at me and slammed the table. Chen Mo, stop making up stories for me. Honestly, how did you and your husband Sean kill these 3 people? My expression didn't change. I looked at him coldly. I didn't make up a story. Everything I said is true. Okay, then let me ask you, do you recognize this person? He picked up a photo and placed it in front of me. I looked up, and my pupils shrank violently. My whole body trembled, and I clenched my fists tightly. The figure of a lovely girl appeared before my eyes. Yes, it's my sister Chen Tong. That's right, blonde hair, a cute face, it was my 16-year-old sister. But now, she was tied to the bed, with dozens of syringes stuck in her body, blood staining her blonde hair red. Her bright, watery eyes had become lifeless, and her lovely face had become twisted. The image of her holding my arm and saying, I love you, sister, flashed in my mind. How happy and lovely she was back then. I felt like a knife was gouging at my heart, but my eyes were dry. The old policeman looked at my painful appearance, and a trace of sympathy flashed in his eyes, but it was only fleeting. Soon, he returned to his stern demeanor. You said that you fainted again after your husband Sean entered the room, right? I nodded. You don't know what happened after that? I shook my head. He slammed the table again. The knife wounds on Professor Chin's body clearly indicate that 2 people committed the crime. How dare you say you didn't lay a hand on Professor Chin? Maybe someone else came in after I fainted. He walked up to me, put his hands on the restraints, and stared at me with his bull-like eyes. You colluded with your husband Sean to attack Professor Chin to avenge your sister, didn't you? I raised my head, pretending to be confused. What does my sister's death have to do with torturing him? Stop pretending. You clearly know that Chin Shou is the West District pervert who killed your sister. A sneer appeared on my lips. Excuse me, Officer Lee, where's the evidence? The old policeman was speechless for a moment. You said that Sean and I killed Chin Shou together, so please present the evidence. The old policeman's face was very ugly, and he sat down in the chair unwillingly. You mean, all of this was done by your husband Sean alone? I nodded. Then do you know that Sean has already been diagnosed with cancer? I hesitated for a moment, my eyes a little wet. I know. Just as he was about to say something again, there was a sudden knock on the door. The old policeman stood up and walked out. The police outside whispered a few words to him, and his face became even uglier. He returned to the interrogation room and sighed. Sean is dead. The corner of my mouth twitched slightly, my face expressionless. He committed suicide. He added. I nodded. He killed people, he deserved to die. A strange look flashed in the old policeman's eyes, as if he couldn't see through me at all. Why did your husband kill Lily and Cody? I smiled. You have to ask him that. How would I know? I could tell that the old policeman couldn't figure out this question either. Chen Mo, don't think we can't do anything about you. The law is vast, and its net is wide and meshes everything. We will find evidence sooner or later. If you confess now, there is still a chance of survival. I sneered. The net is wide and meshes everything? Officer Lee, I'll say it again, you say I killed someone, please show me the evidence. I said it word by word. Officer Lee sighed. Both crime scenes were full of evidence of my presence, and many physiological traces were left. But my statement was seamless. The hallway surveillance and my testimony were completely consistent. As for witnesses, Lily and Cody were both dead. Chin Shou had his eyes gouged out, his tongue cut off, his eardrums pierced, and his body was cut thousands of times. Although he barely survived, he was only clinging to life and could not provide any evidence. And Sean took on all the blame, but he committed suicide. In other words, besides myself, there were no witnesses. Silence filled the interrogation room. I lowered my head feeling like it was about to explode. After a long silence, the old policeman sighed. Chen Mo, I don't expect you to confess anything. I just want to ask you why you killed Lily and Cody. I raised my head and looked at him, a painful smile on my face. Officer Lee, the case is already like this, the perpetrators are there, the evidence is there, why do you have to obsess over the truth? He stared at me without speaking. I'm sorry, officer, I don't know anything, but if you're interested, I can tell you a story. A story about revenge. 7. There was a girl who, when she was 16 years old, her parents passed away. From then on, only she and her sister were left to depend on each other. At that time, the sister was only 5 years old. The older girl took care of her with all her heart, and the younger girl always snuggled up to her. In this cold and cruel world, they were each other's hope and reason to live, the people they would protect at all costs. Only when the two of them were together could they feel that this world was warm. Life was hard, but the two of them slowly grew up. When the girl was 20 years old, she fell in love. Her 9-year-old sister was playful and accidentally got lost. It was that boy who comforted her, protected her, and helped her return to her sister's side. That day, the two young people fell in love at first sight. The boy had no parents and lived alone in the city. 3 young people with tragic backgrounds gathered together and always had endless topics to talk about. One day, the boy proposed to the girl. He used his meager savings to buy a large diamond ring. The girl was moved to tears and hugged the boy tightly. The sister surrounded the two of them, jumping up and down happily. I have a brother-in-law. I have family again. From then on, the 3 of them lived together. The boy doted on the sister like his own daughter, and he seemed to have made the 2 of them his whole world. Those were the happiest times for the 3 of them, until that day. 7 years passed, and the sister grew up, becoming graceful and beautiful. Her natural blonde hair was extremely dazzling. She reached school age, and the family's expenses increased. The boy and girl found a job with good pay, but they had to travel for 2 weeks. The girl was worried about her sister, but her best friend patted her chest confidently, saying that the sister could stay with her. The girl was grateful to her best friend and promised that she would share the money with her when she earned it. The two left. Before leaving, the sister hugged the girl, her tears soaking her chest. Come back soon, sister. I miss you. The girl hugged her sister gently. Don't worry, sister will be back in half a month. You have to wait for sister. The girl left. She turned around and saw her sister waving goodbye to her, crying. She also cried. But, this was the last time the two of them would see each other. The girl and the boy came back. They had made a lot of money. The girl bought a lot of beautiful clothes for her sister and bought a lot of snacks she had never eaten before. She already had an image in her mind of how happy her sister would be when she saw these things. She would definitely hug her sister and shout loudly, "Sister, I love you." Thinking about it, a smile appeared on the girl's face. When they arrived at her best friend's house, the sister was missing. The girl was terrified and grabbed her best friend's collar, asking about her. But the best friend said that the girl had fallen in love and probably eloped with some young man. You looked at your best friend's pale face and knew she was lying. A few days later, the sister's body was found in a landfill. The once beautiful girl had been battered beyond recognition. Dozens of syringes had been inserted into her body, and her whole body was swollen like a monster. She had been violated before her death. She had been tortured to death. Just a few days before, she had held the girl's arm and whispered, "I want to be with my sister forever." As I spoke to this point, my throat choked up, and I didn't know when I had started to cry. The old policeman opposite me lowered his head and remained silent. The female police officer in charge of recording was sobbing softly. Later, under the girl's questioning, the best friend told the truth. It turned out that after the girl left, the best friend had been targeted by the West District pervert. He was an extremely depraved serial rapist and murderer, especially fond of blonde girls. The best friend also had blonde hair at that time. Originally, she was supposed to be the West District pervert's target. But when the West District pervert found her, to save herself, she betrayed her sister. Her blonde hair was dyed, but the sister's blonde hair was natural. This was originally beauty bestowed upon her by God, but now it had become a curse. She brought the West District pervert home and locked her sister and the West District pervert in a room. The sister was tortured for 2 whole hours and died on the spot. And the best friend's boyfriend was there. Not only did he stand by and do nothing, he even tortured the poor girl with the pervert. The sister died in despair. Just a few hours before her death, she was still thinking about her sister. She was still thinking that her sister would bring her a lot of beautiful clothes and delicious snacks. Most importantly, her sister was coming back, and after this time she would never be separated from her sister again. She was dreaming just a few hours ago. A few hours later, she fell into hell. While being tortured, she must have been calling out her sister's name. She would hate her sister. Why did she leave her alone in hell? Why didn't she come back to save her? I stopped, unable to breathe. The interrogation room was eerily quiet, with only slight sobs. 8. The girl hated her best friend, and even more so, her boyfriend. She wanted revenge, to personally kill these 2 beasts. But the boy stopped her. He said that the real culprit had not been found yet, and they could not act now. If they were going to kill, they had to kill them all at once. From then on, the small family of 3 became 2 people. And the only goal of those 2 people for the rest of their lives was revenge. The girl specially bought a house on the 18th floor. From the day her sister died, she was no longer human. She was a devil from the 18th level of hell, suffering torture every day, wanting revenge every day. She wanted to divorce the boy. She didn't want to drag this poor boy down. The boy refused and gave the girl a test report. "Honey, I have cancer? I don't have long to live." He smiled, but tears flowed from his eyes. "Your sister is not only your family, but also my family. I will help you." The boy started searching for clues about the West District pervert all over the internet, so as not to miss any details. He spent a lot of money on the dark web to buy dozens of photos of the West District pervert torturing girls. In this way, the 2 of them hunted the killer for 2 years. In order to attract the killer, the girl dyed her hair blonde and deliberately went to places with high traffic, such as bars and dance halls. It was to seduce the killer. Finally, he took the bait. One day on the way home, the girl felt someone was following her. But she was not afraid. On the contrary, she was very excited. She had waited too long for this day. Hidden under the blonde hair were strands of white hair. The West District pervert did not act rashly. The next day, a university professor moved in downstairs from the girl. The hatred from the depths of her soul told the girl that he was the killer. So, she deliberately approached him, even deliberately seducing him. Then, the boy and the girl acted. Under the girl's deliberate flattery, the best friend thought the girl had really forgotten her sister's revenge. But she was also uneasy, so she thought of seducing her boyfriend to isolate her. The boy agreed. That girl entered the best friend's house in advance and hid under the bed. And that boy pretended to be seduced. After entering the house, she was brutally murdered and dismembered. At this time, the best friend's boyfriend also returned. This beast naturally could not escape death either. Then came the most crucial step. The girl pretended to be domestically abused by the boy and ran to his door for protection. The professor was overjoyed, thinking that the girl had fallen into his trap, delivering herself to his door. Unexpectedly, he was the prey. After entering the house, the girl started kissing the professor. Her lipstick was smeared with medicine. The professor soon fainted. Then, I looked up at the 2 policemen. Then their revenge began. Gouging out eyes, cutting out tongues, slow slicing, all kinds of torture were used on this beast. He tortured my sister for 2 hours, the girl would torture him for 4 hours. But he couldn't die, he had to be allowed to live in pain. I finished speaking these words in one breath, and suddenly started laughing uproariously. "Gentlemen, do you like this story?" I laughed wildly, my eyes full of despair. The old policeman's eyes were also wet. He stopped talking and silently walked out with the crying female police officer. The next day, I was released. Suspicion without proof. They couldn't find any evidence to arrest me. Before leaving the police station, the old policeman patted my shoulder and sighed. "Chen mo, live well, everything should be over." I smiled miserably and shook my head. This would never end. I was still alive. 10. After leaving the police station, I went to the hospital to see Chin Shou. He was conscious, but had become a human pig, wriggling violently like a maggot when he saw me. I smiled at him. "Live well, Professor. You will forever live in the 18th level of hell, forever suffering torture." Sean was dead. I watched him slit his throat in front of me with my own eyes. "Honey, I love you, and I love Xiao Tong. This is my mission, and now I have completed it." After saying that, he smiled gently and unhesitatingly plunged the knife into his neck. His body was cremated by the public security. I came to the beach holding Sean's and my sister's ashes. The blue sea, how beautiful it was. When Xiao Tong was a child, she always liked the sea and said that when she grew up, she would definitely have me take her to the beach to play in the sand and catch crabs. Sister, you didn't lie to me. It really feels good to step on the beach barefoot. A small girl appeared before my eyes, jumping and skipping. She was so young, so lively, so cute. My eyes blurred, and I couldn't help but reach out to touch her. The girl disappeared. Only a voice remained, echoing in my ear. Sister. I smiled and cried, tears dripping onto the crystal-clear necklace. Honey, amethyst, it really suits you. Sean smiled as he put the necklace around my neck. I hugged him and kissed his lips. I stood up and took one last look at the boundless sea. I scattered the ashes of my sister and my husband into the sea. Xiao Tong, honey, I'm coming. The sound of the tide rose as I walked step by step towards the sea. Just as the seawater was about to cover my neck, I saw a figure rolling in the water. I was stunned for a moment, then rushed over and saved her. It was an elderly woman who, after being rescued by me, kept covering her face and crying bitterly. I quietly watched her, waiting for her story. My daughter was tortured to death by several scumbags. Those beasts have powerful families and businesses. An old woman like me can't win against them. Only death can give my daughter closure. I was stunned, my head exploding like thunder. Everyone has their own mission. I suddenly understood. Yes, there's a reason why heaven won't let me die. I am a devil from the 18th level of hell. I should throw all the sinners in this world into hell, to make them suffer eternal torture. I smiled, and my smile was very happy. This was the mission Sean spoke of. Granny, I will help you avenge your daughter. The end.